Well, now that I've announced that I'm retiring the Lenovo ThinkPad X130E after 5 years, I will now show the laptop that's replacing it. This is a Toshiba Satellite U200 made in 2006. I'm not kidding. The laptop I'm replacing the ThinkPad with is half a decade older than the ThinkPad itself. This was one of the computers I picked up from the e-waste pile back in 2015, and yeah, 2 years later, I still haven't gotten through 3/4 of the computer I picked up from that haul, but oh well. This laptop works absolutely perfect, and it's actually a pretty nice laptop. I'll open it up here. This is a 12.1-inch laptop, which I really like. It's a really nice size, and honestly, it doesn't appear noticeably larger to me than the 11-inch ThinkPad, but because it's a slightly larger laptop, it's got a lot more hardware functionality. And it's worth noting that this laptop, it is a satellite, however, it was basically a rebranded Tecra. This is nothing more than a rebranded Toshiba Tecra M6. And as such, physically, this is technically a business laptop because the Tecras were business laptops. And actually, the physical design of this laptop actually originated with the Tecra before they rebranded it as a satellite. So this is physically a business laptop, and as such, it's actually built really well. Surprisingly well, in fact. For example, the keyboard here feels excellent to type on, and it's very sturdy. There is absolutely no buckling when I press down on a key, and the keys themselves feel very nice. Another thing is, look at this display. Look at the hinges on this. This is the tightest hinges I've ever seen on a 10-year-old laptop. Better than the ThinkPad, way better than the ThinkPad. I mean, the ThinkPad still didn't have any play, but they were slightly loose. This has zero play, and they're just as tight as could be. It's just like it's brand new. That is absolutely remarkable. Very nice. So, when I got this thing, it had no hard drive. It takes a SATA hard drive. I just slapped one in. And it had no AC adapter. I bought a used one on eBay, and it works just fine. So, the hardware specs of this thing. This is where it gets slightly interesting, particularly the CPU. This thing shipped with an Intel Core Duo CPU, 1.6 gigahertz. Not a Core 2 Duo, a Core Duo, the older 32-bit unit. Now here's what's really interesting about this computer. Although this shipped with a Core Duo, you can fit this thing with a Core 2 Duo. The chipset in this, I forget what it is, I think it's the Intel 845GM or something like that, or it might be 945GM, I forget. But it actually supports both the first generation and the second generation core processors. So you can take one of these and other laptops that use the same chipset that have a Core Duo and upgrade them with a Core 2 Duo, which is remarkable because it's such a huge upgrade. I mean, that's almost the equivalent of like if you had a Pentium 3 machine and were able to upgrade it with a Pentium 4 CPU, but no such computer ever existed. So it's really surprising to see something like this where you can make such a huge upgrade. So I got this thing with the Core Duo, and I did replace it with a Core 2 Duo. I replaced it with a Core 2 Duo T7200, that's a 2 gigahertz CPU. Makes a world of difference in performance. This thing became so much faster and so much more useful with that upgrade. And of course, you're also going from a 32-bit CPU to a 64-bit CPU. So now this thing, which was originally a 32-bit computer, is now a 64-bit computer. That's really remarkable. So yeah, I did that upgrade. I bought the CPU on eBay for $2. But here's the thing. Replacing the CPU in this computer is hell. It is not accessible by a door in the bottom or anything like that. You have to take the entire computer apart and take out the motherboard to flip over the motherboard because the CPU's on the underside of the motherboard, and then replace the CPU that way. Absolutely hell to do. I wouldn't recommend anyone do it. I'm surprised and impressed that I was able to do it without destroying this computer. I had this totally... And here's the thing. I didn't have to do this just once. I had to do this about a dozen times. And the reason is because I discovered the hard way. I should have known based on what I read on the internet, but I tried it anyway. This thing can only use the very first generation of Core 2 Duo mobile CPUs. I originally tried one of the Core 2 Duo CPUs I had on hand. I had a T5450 that I pulled out of the Dell Inspiron 1525 when I upgraded the CPU in that. So I tried that processor in this. It physically fits, but it does not work. The computer will not turn on. And I must have took this apart, oh yeah, I'd say like 10 or 12 times, swapping between that processor and the original just to see if I somehow did anything wrong. But no, it just doesn't support those CPUs. It supports the very first ones, the T7200, and I'm not sure if it can support the 74 or 7600, but to be honest, I wouldn't recommend anything faster anyway, because where the CPU I've got in this now is a more powerful CPU and a faster clock CPU, this thing actually gets quite hot. The bottom of it gets pretty darn hot. This thing has a rather loud CPU fan, and it runs all the time now just because it gets really warm. Funny enough, Toshiba later rebranded this laptop as the Satellite Pro U200, and they shipped it with a Core 2 Duo. So that's interesting. They took a pre-existing laptop, slapped another CPU in it, and sold it as a new laptop, so that's kind of interesting. RAM. This thing originally shipped with 1 gigabyte of RAM. I've upgraded it to 3 gigs of RAM. It will take 4. Whenever I get back to Mom's house the next time, I'm gonna take the 4 gigs of RAM out of the Dell Inspiron 1525 and put them in this. And then the hard drive, I didn't get this with a hard drive. It takes a SATA hard drive. The hard drive I put in this is interesting. It's a 500 gigabyte Toshiba hard drive. And I got that hard drive back in high school. I pulled it out of a laptop I was given. Some of you might remember that a few years ago I got a Dell Inspiron N4020 laptop that a friend of mine had given me because she got mad at it for some reason and threw it at a wall, because that makes sense when you're human. Yeah, she threw the laptop at a wall and it seemingly destroyed the hard drive. Well, I got that laptop, and of course, if you ever remember, it later died on me just a few days after I had it. The laptop seemed to work just fine with a new hard drive in it, and then it just went kaput. But the hard drive, which was seemingly dead because it was doing the click of death and stuff, I tried it. I kept the hard drive for ever since then, and like a few years later, I stuck the hard drive in something just to see once and for all what it would do so I could throw it away if it turned out to be bad, and it worked. And so I've put the hard drive in this, and it does work. The hard drive that survived being thrown at a wall and originally gave the click of death come back to life in this computer. It's not in the best of health. Once in a while, a few times a day when I'm running this computer, the hard drive will be doing something, and then all of a sudden you'll hear a loud clunk. It throws the heads back to track 0, and then it just continues as normal. So once in a while you get that big clunk. So it is not in very good health, but it is working so far. So it's really impressive. So yeah, I've got a 500 gigabyte hard drive in this. And yeah, let's take a look at the outside here. So start around the left side. Charge 100 megabit Ethernet. We weren't quite into the gigabit era yet. The CPU fan vent, Kensington lock, one USB port, USB 2.0, a built-in modem, that shows this thing's age, and a card bus slot, that also shows this thing's age. Around the front, ooh, lots of indicator lights. I've missed having that on a laptop. A FireWire port, that's very nice, and that would make this a nice video editing machine, but unfortunately it's just way too underpowered for that, I assume. This thing is indeed way slower than the ThinkPad was. It technically has more processing power, but it has far, far, far less graphics power, and that overall just makes the thing feel way slower. If there's anything I've learned in the past couple of years is that your CPU and your GPU very much work hand in hand. You can have a really powerful CPU, but if your GPU sucks, the whole thing's going to feel slow, and that's the case with this computer. Likewise, if you have a computer with an older, slower CPU, you can really spruce it up with a good video card. That's what I've done with a desktop computer that I'm going to show you here in the future, in a video to come. And it's kind of funny, because I always assumed this when I was a kid, you know, when I had the Compaq Desk Pro 5360 as my only computer, I always wanted to upgrade the video card in it, but I asked people online and they're like, no, that computer's too old and slow, new video card's not going to help it. Well, now I think in retrospect it possibly would have helped it quite a bit, particularly on the internet. Anyway, but yeah, the graphics in this thing, extremely underpowered for today's world, and this thing does feel a lot slower than the ThinkPad. It gets around okay, but you gotta be patient, as you'll see later. Microphone and headphone jacks. Around the right side, now look at this, I like this, it's got an optical drive, a DVD-RW drive, I've missed that. My friend Brandon makes fun of me that I like to have an optical drive in all my computers, because he has a desktop computer, a huge desktop computer, and he doesn't even have an optical drive in that, because he's like, who uses an optical drive anymore? Well, I do once in a while, so it's really nice to have a laptop with an optical drive, especially since this thing isn't much bigger than the ThinkPad, but it's got an optical drive, very nice. Volume control, this is what I always liked about Toshiba's laptops, they have a physical hardware volume wheel. Well, actually, this isn't a hardware volume wheel. It looks like one, but it just springs back and forth, so like when I turn up the volume I spring it to and fro like that, and it electronically turns up the volume. We have a memory card slot, SD card, memory stick, or XD card. That's very nice, because the ThinkPad's card slot, before it broke for no reason, could only take SD cards. Well, this thing handles memory stick and XD card. Well, it does work with an SD card, but unfortunately I've tried it with a memory stick, and it doesn't work. Well, I've tried it with this. It's a memory stick duo in a memory stick adapter, and it goes in and fits just fine, but the computer doesn't detect its presence at all, so I'm not sure if that's because of the adapter. It is an original memory stick, not a Memory Stick Pro, so I'm wondering if maybe it only works with Memory Stick Pro, I don't know. But it does work with SD cards, which is nice. Hardware Wi-Fi switch, that's quite nice. VGA, 2 more USB ports, and that's it. And then on the bottom, you get the hard drive right here, and that's it. There's your battery. The battery is shot. It is the original factory battery, so no surprise, it's shot. It lasts about half an hour. I've ordered a new battery on eBay. Mom has it, so I'm going to grab that when I get to her place. And we'll see how that works. Hopefully that works well. Because this thing is my main computer now. Believe it or not, as old and honestly underpowered as this is, it's my main computer now. It's what I have on hand. If I was made of money, sure, I'd buy a new computer, but yeah. Well, I make it work anyway. Let's open it up again here. It's a 1366 by 768 display with a fluorescent backlight, not an LED backlight on the ThinkPad, so it's kind of funny. For the first few minutes it's running, you got to wait for the backlight to warm up before the display gets as bright as you expect. Power button, we have media keys on here, which were so popular on laptops of this era. The keyboard is very nice. It's a full-size keyboard. Some of the placements of the keys are a bit odd, because it had to make it fit in this space. So some of the keys are oddly placed, but it all works. Intel Centrino Duo. And look at this. No kidding, this thing originally ran Windows XP. But it was Vista capable. I have Windows 7 running on this, and it runs perfectly. Windows 7 supports everything, and yeah, no issue at all. It runs very well with Windows 7. When I first got this laptop and first got it running, I tried Windows 10 on it. Will Windows 10 run on this? Yes. Should you run Windows 10 on this? Absolutely not, and that's because there is zero support for the video card. It works, you get the normal native resolution of the display, but there is zero 2D or 3D acceleration. The user interface is so slow and it's useless on the internet, useless for any sort of internet video. So yeah, not suitable for Windows 10. Right here we have a fingerprint scanner and it does work. I've tried it, but I don't have it enabled. But yeah, it's kind of novel to have. And the world's smallest trackpad. How comically small is that? Although I actually didn't take too much time to get used to it. But yeah, in a world where a laptop now has a trackpad that's about that tall by that wide, it's kind of comical. This is smaller than a trackpad I've seen on computers from the 90s. It's kind of funny. So that's the outside overview of this thing. To get to the RAM slots, you remove the keyboard. The RAM slots are under the keyboard, and that's easy to do. And then, as I said, to change out the processor, you've got to take the entire computer apart. It's really time consuming. I got pretty good at it at the end, though. So let's turn this thing on. Well, first let me clean off the display, because that's really dirty, and then we'll turn it on. Alright, that's marginally better, and also I've plugged it in so the CPU doesn't throttle down. Let's turn it on. Oh, I forgot to mention, the speakers are down below the display here. They are excellent. This thing has an excellent sound system on it. Extremely loud, very clear speakers. Really impressive. One of the best laptop speakers, some of the best laptop speakers I've ever heard. I thought I'd have issues with only 3 gigs of RAM, but this thing isn't running all the Lenovo crap that the ThinkPad was running, so it's actually, I'm doing just fine with 3 gigs of RAM. But I'll upgrade it to 4 anyway, because what the heck. Lots of noise in the restaurant upstairs. Very nice speakers, and the sound's only turned up to 50%. But yeah, everything's loading up here. I just remembered something else I had to do. With the default display color parameters that Windows sets, the gamma was way too high on this display. Everything was just washed out and it was very hard on the eye, so I actually ran the Windows calibration tool to calibrate the display, change the gamma. Everything also had a yellowish tint to it, which sometimes happens on displays, so I used the color adjustment to adjust the color, so everything's nice and calibrated now. White things look white and everything else, so it's actually come out very good. It's a lot nicer now that I've run that tool, and now that I think of it, there was one other computer I found once I learned how to do this whose display was also way out of calibration with the defaults, so I was able to calibrate that too. So if you ever have a laptop and something just seems off with your display but you're not sure what, run the Windows calibration tool. It's on Windows 7 and newer and possibly older versions too, and it really helps a lot. So open it up here. Windows 7 Home Premium. And there's the Windows Experience Index, Core 2 Duo T7200, 2 GHz. Let's see the Windows Experience Index look like. So it's actually not terribly bad. 3.3 for the CPU, 3.3 for the RAM. This thing takes DDR2 RAM, 3.6 for the graphics, 3.1 for the gaming graphics. Honestly, I think that's a little optimistic. And then 5.4 for the hard drive, which ain't bad for a hard drive that was seemingly at death's door. Although it is a fast hard drive because it's a very large hard drive. And there's the GPU information. The GPU itself is called the Intel GMA 950. Zero support for Windows 10. If you have a computer with this, don't bother trying Windows 8 or Windows 10. The chipset is called the Mobile Intel 945. I believe it's the 945GM. I think that's what it's called. But because there is 256 megabytes of total video memory, that is enough that Windows Vista and Windows 7, the Aero, works just fine. I've got the Aero glass set up here. So yeah, no problem there. And the wireless card is Intel Pro Wireless 3945 ABG. Very common wireless card, a very good wireless card, but unfortunately, again, not suitable for Windows 10. Windows 10 actually supports the 3945 ABG, but it's got a bug in the driver that will cause it to not reconnect to the network when waking up from standby, and it will say that there's no networks available, which is too bad because I've owned, let alone seen, I've owned so many laptops with this wireless card, which could run Windows 10, but it's not worth doing because of that bug. I'd have to change out the wireless card. The Dell Inspiron 1525 can run Windows 10. Everything else is supported, but if I ever want to run Windows 10 on it, I'd have to change out this wireless card. Maybe I'll do that someday so I can run Windows 10 on that machine. So we'll open up a web browser here. And as I said, this thing gets around on the internet just fine, really. You just gotta have a little bit of patience, but I'm used to that. I've owned mostly obsolete computers my entire life, so I'm not so spoiled that I can't get along with one. This is slower than the ThinkPad, but I've adjusted to it just fine. Let's take a look at a Ada Blasi video here.
TV, and I'm with Rich Sr., one of the coolest people that I know. Wow. And no, it's true. I'm serious. And I'm here at the car show, and I'm going to show you Rich's latest.
I wasn't expecting Brian Eno there for the intro. But it's playing it at, what's it doing right now? Probably, yeah, 360p. It will do 480p, but nothing more. Sometimes when something else, like another web page or some other program, is stealing CPU time, this thing cannot play 480p video. I actually have to tune it down to 360p. But other than that, it gets along just fine playing YouTube video. You just gotta be patient. If I had the money, heck yeah, I'd buy a new laptop, no issue. But I've decided not to. I don't have the money right now. So I'm getting along just fine with this, and yeah, I think it'll serve me well for now, especially because if I have anything that needs a lot of CPU or graphics power, I now have my latest desktop computer that I acquired, which I'll be showing in a video to come, and then when I just want to watch YouTube videos or social media or whatever, this thing fits the bill. It also, I have Microsoft Office on it. It's worked just fine for my writing my school reports. The R key works, which is very nice, and the keyboard overall is very nice to type on. And yeah, it just, this will fit the bill, definitely. I'm hoping that new battery I bought on eBay, I'm hoping that turns out to work. Because then if so, this thing will make a great school laptop too. I can take this to school, and you know, it's nice and small. It actually fits in the laptop bag that I originally bought for the ThinkPad. And yeah, I'm overall happy with this thing. It was a good save from the e-waste pile, and now it's being put to good use. It's kind of comical. I'm now using something with a Windows XP sticker on it as my main computer. But overall, it works just fine, and in many ways, it's been a lot more practical to use in the ThinkPad, because I make use of the SD card slot, and I make use of the optical drive. Let me put that memory stick in one more time and see if it does anything. Yeah, it just does nothing, but if I stick an SD card in it, it'll come right up. So, who knows about that? Oh well. So, that's about all there is to show of this Toshiba Satellite U200 from 2006. The laptop which I'm using to replace the ThinkPad. I think it'll serve me well for now. Will I only use it for a while, or will I use it for long term? I don't know, but I guess we'll just see how it plays out. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.